In a stunning development that has sent shockwaves through the Middle East, former President Trump made a remarkable announcement during Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's recent visit to Washington. Trump proposed what he called a solution to the Gaza conflict, encouraging Palestinians to leave Gaza entirely. The suggestion has sparked immediate international controversy, with many world leaders and diplomats condemning it as a form of ethnic cleansing, while others view it as an unconventional approach to a decades-old conflict. The announcement has particularly rattled neighboring Arab states and threatens to complicate the ongoing hostage negotiations. Let's break down exactly what Trump's proposal entails. He suggested that Gaza's Palestinian population should be encouraged to relocate, presumably to other countries in the region. This would affect approximately 2.3 million people currently living in Gaza. The proposal is remarkably light on specifics. There's no clear indication of where these people would go, how they would be transported, or what resources would be provided to support such a massive population movement. Critics have been quick to point out that forcing or pressuring an entire population to leave their homeland meets the technical definition of ethnic cleansing under international law. The UN Convention specifically prohibits the forced mass exodus of ethnic or religious groups. However, Trump's supporters argue that this is a voluntary relocation proposal, not forced displacement. They suggest it could provide Palestinians with better economic opportunities and living conditions in other countries, but we need to consider the practical implications. Most Gaza residents are already refugees or descendants of refugees from what is now Israel. This proposal would essentially make them refugees for a second time. And there's another crucial aspect to consider: the psychological and cultural impact. Gaza, despite its challenges, represents home for these millions of people. It holds historical significance for Palestinians that goes far beyond just being a place to live. What's particularly striking is how this proposal has shifted the entire framework of the peace process. Previously, discussions centered around two-state solutions or various forms of coexistence. This suggestion fundamentally changes that conversation. The reaction from regional powers, particularly Jordan and Egypt, has been swift and unequivocal in their opposition to Trump's suggestion. Jordan's King Abdullah II has called it a red line that cannot be crossed. Indeed, Jordan's position is particularly sensitive here. The country already hosts over 2 million Palestinian refugees, and their infrastructure is severely strained. Any additional influx could potentially destabilize the entire kingdom. Egypt's response has been equally firm. President El-Sisi has stated categorically that Egypt would not accept any forced relocation of Palestinians to its territory. They've even increased security along their border with Gaza. It's worth noting that both countries see this not just as a humanitarian issue, but as a serious threat to their national security. Egypt is particularly concerned about the Sinai Peninsula becoming a potential destination for displaced Palestinians. These concerns aren't just theoretical. Both countries have historical experience with refugee crises. Jordan's demographic balance is already delicate, with Palestinians making up a significant portion of their population. And there's significant worry about the economic impact. Neither country has the resources to absorb hundreds of thousands, let alone millions, of refugees. Their social services, housing, and job markets are already under immense pressure. We're also seeing a broader diplomatic pushback. Both countries have been rallying support from other Arab nations, arguing that any forced population transfer would violate international law and destabilize the entire region. And they've made it clear that such a move would seriously damage their relationships with both Israel and the United States. They view this proposal as potentially undermining decades of peace treaties and regional cooperation. The timing of Trump's announcement couldn't be more critical, coming right in the middle of delicate hostage negotiations between Israel and Hamas. You're absolutely right. The negotiations, which have been painstakingly mediated by Qatar and Egypt, are now facing new complications. Hamas has already used this announcement as evidence that there's a broader plan to permanently displace Palestinians. The immediate impact has been a hardening of positions. Sources close to the negotiations report that Hamas is now more reluctant to engage in good faith discussions, viewing any temporary displacement during the conflict as potentially becoming permanent. This also puts tremendous pressure on the mediators. Qatar, which has been instrumental in these talks, now finds itself in an awkward position trying to maintain credibility with both sides. The broader peace process is suffering too. The Palestinian Authority, which wasn't part of the current conflict but is crucial for any long-term solution, has completely rejected any further US-led peace initiatives. And let's consider the practical implications for the hostages themselves. Their families must be watching this unfold with increasing anxiety, as any additional complications could mean further delays in securing their release. There's also concern among Israeli security officials that this rhetoric could lead Hamas to increase its demands or alter the terms of any potential deal, using the threat of displacement as leverage. What's particularly troubling is how this affects the humanitarian pauses that have been crucial for both hostage releases and aid delivery. The uncertainty around long-term population movement is making even short-term arrangements more difficult to negotiate. Let's turn our attention to Iran's perspective on this situation, which adds another layer of complexity to an already volatile scenario. Iran has been quick to capitalize on Trump's announcement, using it to strengthen its narrative as the defender of Palestinian rights in the region. They've already issued strong statements condemning what they're calling a forced migration plan. And this plays perfectly into Iran's strategic interest, doesn't it? It allows them to position themselves as the primary resistance against what they're framing as a US-Israeli plot to eliminate the Palestinian cause. Exactly. We're seeing Iran intensifying its diplomatic outreach to other Muslim countries, particularly those opposed to the proposal. They're actively working to form a united front against any potential population transfer. The proposal has also given Iran additional leverage with its proxy groups, including Hamas and Islamic Jihad. There are reports of increased communication between Iranian officials and these organizations since the announcement. What's particularly concerning is how this might affect Iran's military calculations. They've already been providing significant support to various groups in the region, and this could serve as justification for escalating that support. The timing is especially significant given Iran's recent actions in the Red Sea. This gives them another propaganda tool to justify their maritime operations and attacks on commercial vessels. And we shouldn't overlook how Iran might use this diplomatically with China and Russia. They're likely to present this as another example of Western overreach in the region, potentially strengthening their alternative axis of influence. What's fascinating about Trump's proposal is how it fits into his broader pattern of diplomatic shock tactics. We've seen this before, making seemingly outrageous suggestions that grab headlines and shift the conversation entirely. That's right, and when we look at Trump's previous negotiating style, particularly in international relations, he often starts with an extreme position to create leverage for future negotiations. Remember his initial stance with North Korea before the Singapore summit? The timing of this announcement is particularly interesting, coming right after Netanyahu's visit. It could be viewed as Trump trying to demonstrate his influence over Middle East policy ahead of the election season. But there's a danger in dismissing this purely as a negotiating tactic. Even if that's what Trump intends, the mere suggestion has already created serious diplomatic ripples throughout the region. And we should consider that Trump's approach to diplomacy often blurs the line between tactical positioning and genuine policy proposals. His administration has a history of floating controversial ideas to gauge international reaction. Looking at the current political context, this could also be aimed at his domestic audience. It presents him as someone willing to think differently about a conflict that's frustrated traditional diplomatic approaches for decades. The question remains, though, is this calculated disruption or genuine policy? His track record with the Abraham Accords suggests he's capable of pursuing unconventional approaches to Middle East peace, even if they shock the diplomatic establishment. Either way, the proposal has already achieved one typical Trump objective. It's completely reshaped the conversation around Gaza's future, for better or worse. Looking at the broader picture, Trump's proposal for Palestinian relocation has fundamentally altered the diplomatic landscape in the Middle East, regardless of whether it was intended as a serious policy or a negotiating tactic. The implications are far-reaching. We've seen unprecedented unity among regional powers like Egypt and Jordan in their opposition, while the proposal has complicated both the hostage negotiations and the broader peace process. What's clear is that any solution for Gaza's future will need to consider not just Israeli security concerns, but also regional stability and the fundamental rights of the Palestinian people. This proposal, whether implemented or not, has brought these challenges into sharp focus. And perhaps that's the lasting impact. It's forced the international community to confront the complexity of Gaza's situation, even if through a controversial lens that many view as completely unacceptable.